The story starts with a view of a beautiful temple and a gorgeous woman with long red hair who says that she will be waiting. We are then introduced to young Jason, who is woken from this recurring dream by his friend who offers him a part-time job. On his way, he meets a fortune teller, and she tells him that what he is looking for can be found in the hollow at the base of a tree. At work, a girl loses a USB, and Jason finds it exactly where the fortune teller told him he will. He goes back to the fortune teller and tells her about the dream, but is shrugged off by the fortune teller. However, she asks Jason why he does not carry his glasses that see the isolated truth with him. She warns him to always wear them, as he will die if he does not. She warns him to not avoid his destiny and takes his hands in hers. Later, we see that he takes those glasses out and is called out by the girl at his part-time job to a cafe. He comes across an old painting that reminds him of his dream. He wears those glasses and suddenly sees the girl in her true form as a monster. The monster explains that apparently the painting is real. He confronts the monster about her true form, and the monster assumes he is a yokai like her. He plays along and finds out that the beautiful building is called the Temple of the Promised Orchid. He also finds out that the children in the painting are real children who are missing. The monster figures out that he is a human and tries to push him into the painting and says that no one but Hwa Jung-sun knows how to take people out. Jason struggles, and the monster flees after seeing his arms glowing with a curse mark that the fortune teller left. We see a flashback of his past, but in the present, he rescues all the kids. Later, he finds out that the fortune teller doesn't exist. Next, we see a man getting eaten by a monster in Orchid District, and it becomes a haunted place. We see Yang Jason moving into that district after a fortune teller tells him he will meet his destined person there. He finds out later that this area has specters and monsters, even though the locals deny it. He has a hard time settling in as he is scared, but a stick makes his marks ache. After some time, he witnesses a lot of specters right outside his home doing some ceremony. Then we get a flashback to his childhood, where he could see the real form of a specter when it was killing humans and asked Jason if he was human or a specter. In the present, he is attacked by the same specter girl that killed the man earlier. The long-necked specter chases him throughout the house, and none of his plans work. Soon he is trapped by the specter and almost dies. But the stick that made his wrist ache glows and attacks the demon. The specter flees from it, and Jason escapes. We see that the girl from the specter ceremony is called Socheon, and is told by an old specter that one day later she will be a part of the Golden Crown, who collects souls for deeper knowledge, and the ritual will be complete. Jason inspects the glowing stick and keeps it with him. He tries to move back but is stopped by the landlord, who is surprised that he is alive, and offers him money to get rid of the ghosts in Orchid Temple. The description of that ghost matches the girl in his dreams, so he considers it and goes to the temple. The woman he meets there is Socheon, and is not the girl. She tries to kill him, but he thinks she is a ghost, not a specter. His mystical stick glows and saves him, and she wonders if he is going to kill her. But at that point, the demon with the long neck appears again, and Jason prepares to fight, and Socheon is shocked that he wasn't here to kill her. We see that Jason is not good at fighting, and the specter is winning. Socheon wonders how a human has a weapon like that when he is not even an exorcist. Jason protects Socheon and finally hits the specter, but the specter evolves, and Socheon helps him by telling him that this is an illusion, and he has to find its main body to harm it. He finds out his stick is a sword, and they argue amongst each other, but they save each other from the demon's attacks. Socheon asks him why he came here when he is so powerless, and he says that when he thought he was going to die, his only regret was not meeting that person. Hearing this motivates Socheon, and she offers to help fight the specter, as she says she has a reason to escape the temple. Socheon fights the specter, and Jason remembers that he saw something glowing at the foot of the specter, and that it could be its main body. He attacks it, but Socheon gets trapped by the specter and Jason drops his sword. Just as he is about to be hit, his sword protects him and fights the specter on its own and frees Socheon. Jason holds the sword and fights against it. He pushes the sword away from the main body. He reaches inside the specter and pulls out the main body, that is a specter, dog, and faints. Jason wakes up and sees Socheon. She tells him that the specter went back to its original appearance as he took out its main body. She says that this dog is a specter like God. It is then explained that this dog was possessed by a vengeful spirit through a jade hairpin that was stuck to the dog. The girl's spirit shows Socheon that she died tragically by falling off of a cliff when her teacher tried to take away the hairpin that was her mother's keepsake, and that is how she became a vengeful spirit. He didn't let the sword kill the spectre as he did not want to kill someone without listening to their story or reason. So Cheon asks him if he would listen to the story of the ghost that killed his father. Jason becomes uneasy, and the sword glows again. He replies that if the girl had a horrible death once, he couldn't let it happen again. He starts getting suspicious of her presence in the temple and assumes that she is an exorcist. She picks up the dog and tells him to take her to his home. They walk to his home, and so Cheon worries that the oak tree specters will find her soon. Jason assumes that she is an exorcist that went to kill the female ghost in the temple, not knowing that she is the one he is talking about, and she plays along. Jason explains that he saw the spirit of the girl crying, and that is why he didn't want her to die again. His explanation hits Socheon as she too is a Krang ghost, and relative to the spectre girl. They arrive at his house and we find out that Socheon is somehow connected to it. Jason steps out when the old spectre finds her. Just then Jason comes back and is attacked by him, and Socheon is captured by the old spectre, and he tells her that as long as he has her remains, she will never escape. Jason frees her and asks her to help him defeat this spectre, but she says he is too strong for Jason to defeat. The old spectre prepares to attack him and take his sword. Next, we see them preparing to defend themselves. So Cheon says that they cannot win with Jason's poor skills, so she throws up a shield and asks Jason to run to save himself, and that she cannot, as she has to die by their hands. Jason refuses to run away and asks her to fight with him. Socheon is attacked and pushed aside. Jason fights the spectre on his own, as the dog runs away with Socheon's weapon and shows her a hidden weapon. We see that Jason is trapped by the old spectre. It wants to kill Jason for possessing the unique sword. Just as it is about to kill him, a large magical creature rips him off of Jason. We then see this magical creature free Jason. The old spectre is extremely angry at being attacked, but as soon as it sees the magical figure, it shakes with fear and tries to run away, but the creature lets out a roar and uses its magic to trap the old spectre. The old spectre tries to run but fails, and it is turned into a real tree by the creature. It is revealed that this creature is the guardian of this place. After it is done, the guardian goes to its stone sculpture and disappears. We are then shown a flashback where Socheon is a young girl, and her father tells her that outside the boundary specters live, and how they terrorize the town due to how close it is to the spectre territory. He tells her how they have to fight to protect humans, and train hard, as specters always kill them for protecting humans. He assures her that they have a guardian to protect them. It is told to us that Socheon spent her childhood training here and decides to continue her father's job and get her life back. She asks for Jason's help to get her ashes back, as she needs those to return to her body. In the end, we are shown that the temple's spectre apologizes to a mysterious figure at Socheon's disappearance, who says that maybe it is better for them if she has disappeared. He is revealed as the same spectre that Jason met as a kid. Next, we see Jason and Socheon sitting in his home. She is nervous to ask for Jason's help and starts by talking about her past by calling it a friend's past. We find out that this town is close to the Nether Realm, which is why there are a lot of specters here, and we find out that she is a martial artist who died protecting this place and is stuck as a ghost now, and that she needs to reincarnate to protect this town again. She asks him to help her find her friend's ashes. Jason is hesitant to help her. He does not want to risk his life fighting specters when he has not met the girl in his dreams yet. They start arguing when it is revealed that Socheon is the ghost they are talking about. We find out that she was part of a group called Nan Yak, Promised Orchids, to fight specters, and she died in the biggest war and is stuck as a specter, as her ashes were taken by the old specter. Jason agrees to help her. We see Jason and Socheon having a normal day. The landlord spots Jason and is surprised that he is alive and offers him half of his rent back so he does not leave. When he sees Socheon being confused by modern life, he realizes how lonely she has been. He then buys her clothes and shoes and teaches her how online shopping works. She orders too much, and one of her purchases is a weird, ominous urn. They argue over keeping, but then it falls, and they see that a tiny specter comes out. We are then shown an old lady opening the door of her house and then disappears. Back at Jason's house, they examine the small specter. Socheon says it is harmless, as the dog is not on alert. We are then told that the guardian creature from the night before was this small dog. She then says that the reason why the Golden Crown have not found her yet is mostly because of it. It is explained that Golden Crown captures humans and specters and absorbs their memories and abilities, and getting these humans was Suchion's job. She appears suspicious of their motives. The two finally exchange names, and just then, the tiny specter wakes up and attacks Jae-shin. Later, we see a girl opening the door and finds her father in a trance. Above them, a mysterious green-haired man standing on the wires snaps the green pearl he is holding, and the father collapses. Next, we are told an old tale about a scholar who got bewitched by foxfire and how a fox ate his soul, and he became an empty shell. In the present, we are shown that the father from the last episode has the same state. Back at Jae-shin's house, the tiny specter sees Jae-shin as the enemy. Jae-shin again worries about how involved he is with specters. The landlord shows up again and again and asks Jae-shin's help with the disappearances. The father is a victim of foxfire. Jae-shin reluctantly agrees and decides to go check. But when Socheon steps out of the house, the barrier the dog placed glows, and the dog urges her to come back inside as the barrier hides her presence. Jae-shin leaves, but we see that the mysterious green-haired man feels her presence too. Next, we are shown that a reporter comes to the landlord and asks about the strange incidents in town, but the landlord avoids him. Following that, we see Jae-shin arriving at the daughter's house, and Jae-shin sees her father's true form as a monster and is horrified. The father suddenly runs out and Jae-shin follows him. His sword goes after the father, but listens to Jae-shin's command to not kill him but traps him. The trapped monster suddenly attacks Jae-shin, and he is about to be swallowed when the marks on his arm start to glow, and he is saved as the monster explodes. A crowd forms, and Jae-shin sees multiple monsters like the father, and he runs as they follow him. Jae-shin is being followed, and he bumps into the reporter on his way. Turns out that the reporter Yeonjoka is an exorcist who gets rid of the perianths that were following Jae-shin with a unique weapon. It is revealed that these perianths are dolls that imitate humans and are not living creatures. When the two of them talk, we find out that he is an exorcist and is shocked that Jae-shin isn't considering the sword he has and then threatens to take the sword away. We are shown that Yeonjoka tries to take away the sword, but fails as it only responds well to Jae-shin. He is very suspicious of Jae-shin, but they discuss perianths, and we are told that they need part of a human they are imitating, so the humans must be kidnapped by the fox. Just then, Yujung, the daughter, comes, and Jae-shin promises to find her father and sends her away. Jae-shin has an idea, and Joka tags along as Jae-shin is inexperienced and will be easily killed by the fox. Back at Jae-shin's house, Socheon bonds with the little specter. The specter turns out to be a princess from the Soyu kingdom called Hongyeon. We are told how she got ambushed exploring the human world, and that is why she ended up in the urn. In the end, we see Jaeoka going with Jae-shin to keep an eye on him. Next, we see Jaeoka place a talisman on Jae-shin, and they discuss the perianths amongst each other. Right after this, we are shown where the kidnapped humans are, and we see a little girl approach them and call the humans her family, and play pretend with them while the prisoners are crying. Yujung's father begs to be released, but the girl makes another perianth look like him so he can go bring Yujung here. Back at Jae-shin's house, Socheon and Hongyeon are visited by the mysterious green-haired man, who forces his way through the barrier, as we find out that he is looking for the one making the perianths and suspects, Socheon, to be hiding that person in here and recognizes her aura from before. In the end, we see Yujung be swallowed by the perianth that looks like her father. We are then shown a fight between Socheon, the guardian, and the green-haired man. Socheon is busy trying to keep him away from Hongyeon. It appears that the man thinks that Socheon is the one hiding the culprit who is kidnapping all the humans, and there is no time for explanations as he attacks her, but she puts up a good fight. Back with Jae-shin and Joka, they spot the perianth that swallowed Yujung and run after it, but they lose him before they can find the entrance, but Jae-shin spots a distortion, and this leads them to find the hidden passage made by the specter. Jaeoka places a talisman on it to keep the door open and asks Jae-shin to stay back, as once the talisman burns away, they will not be able to find their way back. Jae-shin replies by stepping into the door and says that he is too involved already. We see that the victims are very scared, and the perianth carrying Yujung appears. Yujung is unconscious, and her father gets angry at the girl, and the girl is angrier, and the victims tremble with fear. Just then we see the perianth getting destroyed by Joka as the two enter. Yaeshin sees the girl in her true form as the fox spectre with 3 tails, and she attacks Joka, but his talismans burn her, and she instead creates multiple perianths and locks herself and the victims into a room. Jason and Joka get rid of the perianths, but cannot enter the room. After realizing that the two are there to save them, the victims cry for help, and this causes the fox to snap and asks the perianths to kill them all. They start swallowing the victims, and Jason jumps to try and open the door with his sword to save Yujung and the rest, when the door opens and they are attacked by multiple perianths. The first thing we see is the perianths attacking Jason and Joka, and they find out that they cannot kill the perianths as they have swallowed the humans as a shield. They struggle to fight as they do not want to hit the humans and are barely able to defend themselves. Joka get hit by them, but Jason's sword is able to land a hit, and he also stops his sword from killing the perianths, as the humans would be hurt. He gets badly hit by one of them, and just as he is about to be hit again, Joka uses a talisman with a binding spell that stops them from moving, but it also stops him from moving, so it is up to Jason to free the humans. He gets the idea to free the humans by using the mark on his arms. Just at that moment, the fox comes out and attacks Joka in his bound state, and right at that moment the binding spell burns away. We are then left in suspense as the scene shifts to Sucheon mid-battle with the man and appears to be hurt. The fight between Socheon and the man continues and she is hurt, so Hongyeon comes out. She declares that he will stop the fight as she has come out, but the man appears to be confused as she is not the one he was looking for. Hongyeon shoots a bullet at him and wounds his hand. And just then he realizes who she is and asks her what she is doing here. He insists on checking the house for another person, but he is stopped by Hongyeon who shoots at him again. We see Socheon thinking just what he could be looking for. And then the story shifts to show the fox girl and her fight with Jason and Joka. Jason manages to free Yujung from the perianths. At the same time, the fox girl runs to the perianths but is stopped by Joka, and they begin to fight, but the fox is too quick and traps Joka by trying to rip his head off. He manages to throw her off of him as she gets distracted by Jason, who keeps on freeing the humans. Just as she falls, we see a pouch fall and something rolls out. We then see Socheon and the man as they stop fighting, and it is revealed that someone stole a very dangerous bead from him, and that is what he is looking for. We are shown that it is the same bead that fell from the pouch. Next, we are taken to the past as we are shown the fox's backstory. We see the villagers after the younger fox spectre as she eats their animals, but then we see her getting adopted by a kind old lady who becomes her grandmother. She names the fox Soho and teaches her how to live. They live happily until the grandmother falls ill and asks her to build another family after she is gone. She told Soho not to hurt humans, but humans hurt her. Just as she lays bleeding in the snow, a strange masked woman approaches her with a golden bead that heals her and asks her to hurt humans back. The woman tells Soho that she can build a family by gathering humans. She gives her the bead so she can have power, and in exchange, Soho has to give the failed humans to her. We see them standing over the bodies of the dead humans, and while Soho remembers her grandmother told her not to hurt humans, the woman is satisfied as she wants the humans' emotions that don't come out, unless they are hurt. In the present, we see Jason pick up the bead, and he glows really brightly, and gets a vision of the girl in his dreams, but then sees her bleeding in the snow and he passes out. Just then, the fox swallows the bead and evolves, and Joka panics as the humans and Jae-shin are passed out, and he does not know how to escape. Then we see the man and Socheon arguing about whether the bead is in this house, when suddenly there is a burst of bright light, and the man recognizes it as the bead's power and rushes towards it. We then see Joka facing the evolved fox and placing talismans on the humans and Jae-shin to protect them and on himself. He faces the fox, but it is too powerful and gets hit multiple times. It keeps hitting the boundary Joka created to keep Jae-shin and the humans safe, and Joka tries to push it away but gets hit. Outside the entrance, the man comes and finds the doorway. He removes the talisman, keeping the door open, and interrupts Joka and the fox's battle. The man joins the fight. He tells Joka that his sword will likely not have an effect on the fox and might activate the powers of the bead. Joka does not trust him, and the man pushes him aside into a barrier. The man deals with the fox and asks it to return the bead. Jaeoka frees himself from the barrier and joins the fighting specters despite the man's warning. He slashes the fox and injures it enough to shock the man, who is a spectre as well. We then see Jaeoka's other eye glowing, and we learn that it's a specter's eye. The fox heals itself and attacks. We find out that the bead ate 1,000 lives is why it is so dangerous. The man proposes teamwork with Jaeoka to defeat the fox. Jaeoka reluctantly agrees, as the man promises to guide him on the way back so he can save everyone. However, Jaeoka is very injured and falls to his knees. Right then, we see Jason rising to his feet. Next, we are shown that Jason saw the fox's memories. He starts speaking to her and tries to convince her that family is made by trusting each other. The man is doubtful of Jason's plan. The fox attacks, and Jason's sword stops it as he continues to talk to her. She replies to him that she tried, but they hated her, and Jason relates to feeling alone. He tells her that the reason Grandma told her to make another family was so she wasn't lonely. Hearing this, the fox starts crying and tries to end her life by activating the bead. Jason's sword also evolves into an actual sword, and he stops the attack. Jason desperately tries to convince the fox, as its powers go out of control, by saying that she should make another family the right way and apologize to the ones she has hurt. He pulls the little fox out of the evolved body and stops everyone from getting destroyed. Jason spots the bead and questions what he saw when Joka warns him to drop the bead. Then the man takes the bead away from Jason, and Joka protests and asks the man to keep it back. The man binds both of them and picks up the little fox, claiming that despite its wrongdoings, he cannot leave it with humans and she must pay for her crimes. He returns strength to the humans, removes their memories, and creates a gate for them to leave. Joka continues to protest, and the man reveals that the bead belongs to him, and Joka realizes that this man is the nine-tailed fox, the owner of the bead. He leaves telling Jason that he would see him again. Yujung wakes up her father outside their home. Later, Jaeoka forces Jason to explain his involvement in this world. We see the nine-tailed fox come to Socheon and give her a ring that would hide her aura and true self, as an apology for the misunderstanding. We are then told information regarding the nine-tailed fox. The scene shifts to Jae-shin and how frustrated Joka is after learning everything. He uses a talisman on his glasses that makes them vanish, saying they have no value in the human world. We see that the ring works, and Socheon runs out. We also see that as the dog steps out of the barrier, the tree glows and shakes. We then see Jae-shin thinking about the conversation he had with Jaeoka, who tells him that this is his fate. And just when Jae-shin starts to blame himself, Socheon rushes to him and hugs him while he notices her injuries. She cries and apologizes for getting him involved and asks him to leave. At this moment, Jae-shin realizes that she is someone precious to him, who he wants to protect. He refuses to leave. The next day, the two of them and Hongyeon observe the sword and wonder how it changed, and Hongyeon gives him a sheath that helps him carry the sword. Just then, Joka shows up, and Jae-shin panics as he cannot let him meet Socheon and Hongyeon. Jae-shin explains that Joka is an exorcist and worries if he should meet them. Jae-shin eventually lets him in, and Joka reveals that he put a tracking spell on him. He also notices that this place is unusual. He mistakes Socheon for Jae-shin's wife, and Jae-shinbi introduces her as an exorcist. Hongyeon is turned into a doll, and Joka picks her up and teases Jae-shin for his taste. He requests their help to fight specters, as he explains that specter cases are increasing, and this started around a century ago, and that earthquakes will open a door for the specters to come through. He suspects that the promised orchid is at its center. Socheon agrees, and they plan to go that night. In the temple, we see another old spectre gather forces to attack it down. As Joka is explaining their fight with the fox to Socheon, Jae-shin is worried about Hongyeon and tries to get her back from Jaeoka, but he starts exploring her, and this is how she reveals her true self. He becomes very angry and says he knew something was off. He starts questioning Jae-shin's motives, and they draw swords as Jaeoka almost attacks Hongyeon. Jae-shin explains that he will first hear their reason, whether they are a specter or human. Right at this moment, the dog starts barking, and many specters from the temple show up. The three of them call a stop to their argument to deal with this. The specters try to force their way in, but Jae-shin believes that Belly, guardian dog, will keep them out. They discuss how the specters must have found the house, but Gyoka believes that the fact that you can't sense anything is the problem with the house, and that it might attract other specters. The specters get burned by the barrier, but their leader hypnotizes them and forces them to attack. Inside, Jason and the others prepare to fight. They decide to find the reason why they came here, and Jason and Gyoka step out and fight with the specters. As Gyoka attacks their leader, he is stopped by a huge specter.
Hey viewers, subscribe for more.